continuing on what I was talking about earlier in the podcast about misinformation on social media, I want to go over this because a lot of people got things a little twisted and confused, and people were putting out narratives out there to make Quavo look bad and Chris Brown look good, and fans are going to do that. They're going to add fuel to the fire and side with their artists and push narratives out there. But let's go over what's going on. So Quavo was performing, and this is in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and there really wasn't much of a crowd. There's barely any people there, probably like 150 to 200 people just chilling there watching Quavo perform. And then fans were like, Chris Brown fans pushed this narrative that Chris Brown purchased all of Quavo's tickets, and that's why it's not many people showed up. It's basically the same thing that 50 got, 50 did with Ja Rule, where like, hey, Ja Rule had a bunch of empty seats, and then people were saying 50 Cent purchased all the tickets. Which 50, I think, I could be wrong with this, never really confirmed. He just ran with that narrative because it's funny. I don't think 50, here's the thing. Why would you buy tickets to help your enemy? You're basically putting money in their pocket. Yeah, there's a clown them for a little bit, but at the end of the day, hey, you help me sell a lot more tickets. And you put money in my pocket. So it's not really a flex that people think it is. So they're basically pushing that narrative of Chris Brown. That Chris Brown did that with Quavo. That's why there's not a lot of people at these concerts. I mean, if you look at the videos, it looks like 200, maybe 300 at best people there. So let's go over the TMZ article. I just want to see what TMZ had to say about it. So Quavo's recent concerts getting attention online because the crowd looks pretty small compared to the venue, and tons of people are convinced it's Chris Brown's doing. Video from Quavo's concert in Bridgeport, Connecticut is floating around social media, seemingly showing a damn near empty venue looking more like a gig for a small artist than a former member of Migos. The crowd in the pits pressed up close to the stage with people in the back of the clot not more than 10 or 15 rows removed from the artist. It's a pretty bizarre scene, you got to say, and Quavo handles it with grace, putting on a pretty spectacular show for a lackluster audience, but the tiny crowd has people online theorizing Chris Brown may have pulled one over on cue. Folks online are pushing the conspiracy theory Chris Brown bought a ton of tickets for the show so Quavo would perform to a pretty much empty concert hall, basically as a way to embarrass his nemesis. Admittedly, it's a bit far-fetched. Chris would have spent a small fortune on Quavo's show, handing over cash to someone he hates. Stranger things have happened, we suppose. Yeah, so that's my theory too, is like, why would you give money to your enemy regardless if it makes them look bad for that show? And also, guys, remember, Chris Brown is Chris Brown. He's way bigger than Quavo as a solo act. Like, let's not get that twisted. I have no horse in this race. I'm not on Quavo's side. I'm not on Chris Brown's side. Period. I don't care about which guy wins and who wins what. For anyone to even think Quavo pulls in a concert and a tour as a solo act. Now with Amigos, with all three of them when Takeoff was alive, yeah, they could pull in people, right? But Quavo himself, he hasn't really established himself as a solo artist like that, in my eyes at least. Like, has he had a solo album that made everybody be like, oh my God, he dropped a classic, he dropped all these hits? No. At least that's from what I can remember. I don't really keep up with Quavo's career like that, music-wise, but I never really heard anything from Quavo as a solo artist that was like, wow. Offset now dropped a pretty recent album that I enjoyed. So Offset, I can say, you know what, I actually like some of his music. But Quavo, like, we can't compare Chris Brown. Chris Brown's been a solo artist, building his solo name since he was fucking 16 years old. Like, come on, guys. Like, there's no comparison. What Chris Brown brings an audience versus what Quavo at a concert there's no comparison. Like, we're not going to, no, there's no comparison. We're not going to clown Chris Brown and say, he's at the level of Quavo. We're not going to clown Quavo for not being at the level of Chris Brown. Obviously Chris Brown's been doing this for a lot longer. This guy's been delivering hits since 2005, guys. So, as far as this, I doubt Chris Brown bought the tickets. Now, can Chris Brown run with this narrative and say, yeah, I did that, I clowned him? Cool, he can do it. That's the same thing 50 did with the Ja Rule thing, because I don't think 50 actually bought tickets from Ja Rule's thing. I think a lot of these events, there's a couple things that can go wrong. One, the event doesn't get promoted well. And that's really out of the artist's hands. And a lot of artists don't really give a shit to promote their events because they already get their money. They get paid for their show. Whether people come there or not, they get paid whatever they get paid. So if if an artist gets paid $50,000 a show, they get that $50,000 whether seats are filled or not. That's not their job to fill the seats. It's the promoter's job. It's the promoter's job to say, hey, we have this special artist. Come enjoy, to have some fun, get some drinks, and that's how they make their money. So it's not the artist. The artist can post on their social media, hey, I'm going to be here, blah, blah, blah. They can do one post and that's it. They don't have to do anything, So that's one thing. It could be bad promotion. Two, it could be they just don't bring in the crowd anymore like that, which happens, man. There's nothing wrong with that. I think Quavo hasn't built his solo career. I don't think to clown Quavo for that, to me at least, he hasn't built his solo career yet. If he's in his solo career 10, 15 years down the line, he's, doesn't do anything with it, then yeah, you could be like, this guy never really was an artist like that because he was only good with the Migos and that's it. You could say that. But right now, Takeoff had recently got killed, unfortunately. So Migos is never Migos again. It's never going to happen again as a group. So they got to now build their solo careers, and we'll see where they go from there. I think Offset's at a great start, but Quavo could be there too. I think Quavo has a lot of star power in his own right. So that's another thing. You can't clown these guys for they just started building their solo careers versus Chris Brown, who's had his solo career built from 2005. The third thing is, it depends on the area too, man. As much as popular as these artists are, there are some areas where they just don't perform well in terms of ticket sales. There's nothing wrong with that. I think there's certain areas where just people are not as interested in you. If you get the bag, you go there, you get your money. That's all that matters, man. I do remember, this is back when I was living in Iowa. Me and my sister went to go see Future. This is when Future dropped the Honest album. That shit only had and I think I have video footage of it. I got to go through my phone. But that shit only had 50 people there. Were people clowning Future? Were people, oh my God, Future's not hot. Look, he's in Iowa and he's only got 50. It was about 50 people. I'm not even, I could see all the, because me and my sister were on the side. So there's this, that the concert had this middle area. And then it had side areas a little bit higher that you can, see. And we went to that side area. And I could see down, in the middle area, how many people were there. And it was about, all right, 50 maybe is a little low. Maybe 100 people. I'll give it 100. I wasn't counting them, but it was so small amount of people. Yeah, could I clown Future and be like, nah, man, he only pulled in 100 people in Iowa. But come on, man, does Iowa really dictate somebody? And does what is this area? What was the area again? Bridgeport, Connecticut really dictate if, Quavo's a hot artist or not? It's a random area, man. I don't know Bridgeport, Connecticut like that. So I could be wrong. It could be one of the most popping places ever. But I'm just saying, if Quavo did the same show in Atlanta, he'd probably have a lot of people coming out. So that also plays a factor into it. So I get it. It's fun for clowning and social media. It's a lot of jokes. It's cool, but I doubt Chris Brown bought the tickets, and that narrative that gets pushed online from fans, it is what it is. But if Chris Brown joins in on it, it's probably going to be funnier. So, hopefully he actually runs with it. But yeah, we'll keep our eyes posted, and if anything happens with this Quavo and Chris Brown thing. Chris Brown said I ain't responded, so I don't know if we're going to get anything out of this, but it is interesting to say the least.